So thanks for joining me today, Dan. I'm Helen Cunningham. I'm Policy and Research Officer with Bevan Foundation. It's great to be speaking to you today. So I wondered if we could just kick off by you telling me a bit about what AAT does and what it is.
Yeah, AAT, it's a charity in the Swansea Valley. It stands for Awel Aman Tawe, and I helped set it up, and it's been running for about 20 years. It's a community regeneration charity, and I guess the main things that we've been involved with are community energy. So we've set up a community wind farm called Awel Co-op, which finally sort of started operating in 2017, and we've also set up Agni Co-op, which is a rooftop solar co-op with sites mainly in South Wales.
And am I right in thinking it's the largest solar co-op now in the country?
Yeah, it's it kind of defies expectations of what Wales is like. It's in terms of it not, people think of it being wet and rainy, but no, Agni's is the largest one now in the UK, which is a great achievement. For especially our two development staff, and we're hoping to sort of increase it as well in the next year.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really good to hear. Can you tell me just a bit about your role then within the organisation?
I was the sort of co-founder, and we've sort of done a range of different projects over the years, including sort of fuel poverty, energy efficiency advice work, and also a lot of arts projects as well. I suppose we just look to try and engage people within climate change action and have a very sort of social enterprise approach, so that we try and generate funds from our own activities and then apply for any grant funding where we can as well. But I think just since the awareness of climate change has become a lot stronger, and we were able to get our wind farm developed, things have sort of started to expand quite rapidly for us, which is really good in terms of sort of civic society being able to take action on climate change.
Yeah, and you mentioned quite a few things there around social enterprise, around fuel poverty, which is some work the Bevan Foundation's done previously, and it's areas we're interested in. So I just wanted to ask you, where did you hear about Bevan Foundation's work?
I've heard about the foundation over a lot over the years, and some of the sort of research and policy work that you've done. But I was particularly interested recently in sort of piece on procurement that you did, because that's something that we dealt with or encountered, I guess, in terms of Agni, working with the public sector and the kind of issues that we faced and the timings, etc. So it just sort of struck a chord, really, how the public sector could encourage tenders from the third sector and find ways not to exclude them. I've seen previous tenders where they require sort of certain financial standing, which is very difficult for a new co-op, as Agni was almost like a year ago, really. It had a tiny turnover and just a couple of sites, but certainly Newport Council found a way of working through the procurement issues and kind of awarding us a tender, a direct award, which was advertised on Sell to Wales. But they kind of could see the value of that partnership.
Nice example of a public body taking a different approach and opening things up perhaps a little bit for social enterprise and organisations like yourself to do what you do, which is fairly unique. Yeah,
I mean, they had declared a climate emergency and could see that Agni had the potential to deliver something. And they could see that we offered more than just kind of putting solar panels on roofs and a kind of a discounted, electricity price, because we were a charity. We were developing educational outcomes, and that's led to us then employing a full-time education worker who's now sort of working closely with those Newport schools, and probably will achieve sort of further carbon savings in addition to what the solar panels that have been installed have achieved. Appreciating that partnership has a lot of potential, and it can't always be measured on a sort of bottom line type tender exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds fascinating. A leader on things perhaps for other organisations to look at.
yeah, I guess this was a sort of the first time we've kind of properly encountered the public sector in terms of tendering. So it was a good experience, and I think it will, it's sort of developing in the future as well. And we did the same, managed to do the same with Newport's kind of support. We then did the same with Swansea Council, and also did lots of installations there using the same procurement kind of framework. And yeah, I think it's got lots of potential. And it's just kind of recognising that I guess a sort of small Welsh social enterprise can achieve a lot, but it's very hard to kind of just set up a sort of a tender exercise where we could end up competing with sort of multinationals, basically, who could just put loads of resource into the tender exercise itself, whereas perhaps we put more into the actual delivery.
And I think that's what we tried to emphasise with that piece of work. It was around social enterprise and how to grow it in Wales and where it can grow. And I think one of the big kind of messages from that was there are a lot of public sector organisations and individuals within public sector organisations that want to take this approach. And there's these kind of pockets of good practice is, I think, a phrase that we use. So there are things happening, some really interesting things happening, but it's a case of how you can learn from them and spread that good practice further, and I guess make it the norm rather than the exception. Yeah, and that's what I guess we're very much hoping to do with Agni. We had 2 local authorities that really worked constructively with us, and we also worked with Pembrokeshire Council as well. We'd like to work with more local authorities, and there's a lot of benefits, on both sides to that partnership. And finally, I just wanted to ask you, what difference the Bevan Foundation's work has made, or do you think it could make to your work in future? I know we've had some discussions about kind of a fair transition and climate justice and areas of work that are interest to both of us on the agenda of creating a fairer, more sustainable Wales. Yeah, I think, looking at the policy at a sort of national level and how Welsh Government obviously interacts with that. I suppose we're very much kind of just dealing with particular issues, and we lose sight, I guess, of perhaps the overall argument. So it's very useful to have someone like the Bevan Foundation analysing the sort of policy context, and then potentially then drawing on some examples like with Newport where a social enterprise has been successful, and just kind of promoting that, because they really deserve a lot of recognition. Their staff worked so closely with us, in the procurement and also subsequently in the delivery. So like highlighting that sort of positive example, and I think then just giving the confidence to other local authorities that this sort of model, adds a lot of value and can be achieved. Because that's what I felt, is that there was just, you're right, there is enthusiasm, but sometimes council officers just sort of feel, oh God, it's going to be either a lot of work, or, are these, have they got full confidence, in a social enterprise model? So it's good just to raise awareness of where it has worked. And I think, learning also from what's happening in Scotland and England as well, in terms of developments there. Yeah, it's just useful to have that overall analysis, because it will help us as well kind of win future tender opportunities if we can point to good analysis of policy and how that can benefit social enterprise. Yeah, well, that's certainly what we aim to do and what we're going to continue to aim to do. So it's been great to speak to you, Dan, and fantastic to have this chat and hear more about what AAT does. So thank you very much. Thanks, Helen.